Hello? Just uploading this just in case that resource I uploaded doesn't actually work correctly, and thought I'd put my own spin on it. So, statistical questions. Statistics, just in my opinion, it's one of the more important things, but it's kind of a footnote in 6th grade curriculum. But anyways, statistics, all that statistics is, it's studying, collecting, and organizing and interpreting data. It can be used to answer a whole bunch of different questions. It's good for determining statistically what is most likely to happen. It's good for this whole business with the COVID-19, understanding the statistics of who is more likely to get sick and what is more likely to happen if certain people were to get sick, the elderly, the young, all of that goes into statistics, and that's basically what has got the whole world wrapped up, is everybody is obsessed with statistics over what is going on. But back to the point. The point of statistics is to answer questions, but some questions don't necessarily need statistics to be answered. The subject investigated... that doesn't really make sense to me. The subject investigated must have variability. That sounds like nonsense to me. Statistics typically deals with large amounts of variability. That just means that there can be a lot of different answers for a single question, or variability could be how spread out something is, or how varied or how different things are. So whenever we're talking about a statistical question, a good statistical question should have a bunch of different answers. Like, if I were to ask everybody, what color is this pen? That's not a statistical question. There is only one answer. It is green. Yeah, you might have some knuckleheads who will say it's a certain kind of green, but a statistical question should have a lot of very different answers. So asking one person, how tall are you? You can tell that that is not a good statistical question, because the answer is not going to change. The person is that tall right then, they're going to be that tall in about 5 minutes. Now, what would be a really good statistical question could be asking an entire class, how tall are all of my classmates? Well, now you're getting into getting a lot of different answers, a whole lot of different answers. So, down here at the bottom of this sheet, at the top is a couple examples and kind of going over this. If you haven't completed this bottom section yet, pause the video now, go back into the PDF and work on it, because I'm just going to go straight through the whole thing. So, number 1, a forestry worker counted the number of diseased trees in 4 plots. How many diseased trees are there? So that, let's see. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and cover everything up, and I'm going to reveal it just to make this video nice and short. So, these would be the answers that I have gotten. Now, we're kind of going into each question assuming a couple of things. We're assuming that we can simply ask a question of an individual person. We're also assuming that we don't have any previous information about these questions going in. So for number 1, a forestry worker counted the number of diseased trees in 4 plots. We're assuming that we don't have that previous information, and this would require statistics. We would need to gather the information about the number of diseased trees in all 4 of those plots, and then find the total. That will require some data gathering, and is a good statistical question. For number 2, how many campers are there each month in the year? That also is a good statistical question, because the information from one year is going to be very different from another year. Number 3, this is not a good question. It's simply asking Mr. Chase was measured for a sports coat. What size coat does he wear? That's not a good question, because we can assume that we can just ask him, what size coat do you wear? that answer isn't going to change from one day to the next, assuming that Mr. Chase isn't a kid and isn't growing anymore. So 3 is not a good statistical question. That's going to be a constant number. That's not going to change. Number 4, you might argue that this is not a statistical question. My argument is it's saying how much does a dryer cost at the store? Which store are we talking about? Does she have a coupon? Are there any sales going on? What time of the year is she going shopping? Because that can determine if she's going to find a good deal or not. All of those play into it and make this a better statistical question than you might think. Now, number 5 has a word some of you may have had to Google. A tributary is a smaller stream or a smaller river that feeds into a bigger river. So, like if I have the Mississippi River here, and that's the river, a tributary would be like some of these guys, little streams that are coming into it. So in this section, we would have 4 tributaries. But for this one, I'm going to say yes and no. This is not a good statistical question in the sense that the number of tributaries won't really change over time. But it's also a really good statistical question because the Mississippi River is it is a very large river, and it would require quite a bit of information gathering to determine exactly how many tributaries there are. So number 5, I'm going to say yes and no, but for different reasons. Number 6, a karate school teaches 12 classes per week. How many students are in each class? Good question. We're going to have to actually gather the information for each of those 12 classes in order to determine how many students there are in each class. So good statistical question. Number 7 mentions he picks 25 watermelons. What is the total weight of the watermelons? Again, we would have to gather all of the data for those 25 watermelons, which makes it a good question. And number 8, the size shoe Marcia is wearing, that shouldn't really change. We don't need the other shoe sizes in the class to answer that, so it's not a good question. April bought a new cell phone. How much did she spend on the phone? The amount that she spent on that phone is going to be the same amount if we wait a week and ask her. And number 10, a county charges a flat tax on every automobile. How much does the county charge? They just said it is a flat tax. So however much that amount is, it's a flat amount. It should not go up or down. And that's really it for statistical questions. It's kind of a little side note of the unit, but it is important to know whether something is or is not a good statistical question, whether or not something is a good cue for gathering information or not. And that is really it. Short lesson today. Bye-bye.